Meet Jake and Maya. Jake is Canadian, born and raised in Toronto. Maya is American. They met in New York, fell hard, did a long distance thing for 2 years, and finally got married in 2022. Plan was always Canada. Jake's career is here, his family is here, so it all made sense. So Maya starts coming over on a visitor status. Weekends, then weeks, then longer. They're newlyweds. Nobody wants to count the days. And here is where it all goes sideways. Maya loses track of her authorized stay. Not malicious, not calculated. Life just takes over. She's meeting Jake's family, they're looking at apartments. She feels like she lives there because, well, in every way that matters, she does. And then one weekend they drive down to visit her parents in New York. On the way back into Canada, the CBSA officer pulls her file. 8 months in Canada, 6 months visitor authorization. She gets flagged, she gets questions, and she is told she cannot re-enter. So just like that, Maya is on the wrong side of the border. Jake is in Toronto, and they're completely blindsided. I'm Cosima McDonald, regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and this is Spousal Sponsorship Files, where we walk through hypothetical cases just like this one and break down the red flags, talk about exactly how they get addressed. Jake and Maya are fictional, but this scenario comes up constantly, and what happens next depends entirely on how the file gets built. So let's talk about what's actually going on here and what a file like this needs. First, what did Maya do wrong? She overstayed her authorized period of stay. When you enter Canada as a visitor, you're typically given 6 months. A lot of people think the date in their passport is the expiry. It's not always. The authorized stay is set by the border officer at the entry. No stamp. The default is 6 months from the date you arrived. Maya didn't track it. That's the problem. So now she has a red flag on her record and a denial of entry. She is not inadmissible for life, but this does not just disappear on its own. So what does the path forward look like in this scenario? Outline spousal sponsorship. Jake sponsors Maya from outside Canada. Maya applies for permanent residence from within the United States. She does not need to be in Canada for this process. She waits, she gets approved, and she comes back as a permanent resident, not a visitor. This is clean and correct. And the overstay, while not ideal, does not automatically kill this application, but it cannot be ignored. It cannot be minimized. It has to be addressed head on in the file. Here is how. The letter of explanation, also called the LOE, is not optional in a scenario like this. Maya's letter needs to explain the overstay clearly and factually. When it happened, why it happened, that it was not intentional, that she has since complied with all requirements. No drama, no excuses, just facts. The letter of explanation is where you get ahead of the questions before IRCC asks it. A file that explains a problem proactively reads completely different than a file where an officer finds a flag and starts digging. One tells a coherent story, the other raises more questions. You want to be the one telling the story. Second, the relationship evidence in a file like this needs to be bulletproof. A flagged file gets more scrutiny. Every claim needs documentation behind it. Timeline, visits, messages, marriage certificate, shared finances, family connections. This is not a scenario where you submit the minimum and just hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. And third, the border incident. Depending on what was documented at the border, they may or may not be a formal finding against Maya. A removal order, even a departure order, changes the strategy significantly. A flag, a denial of entry, those are manageable things. The details matter enormously. And this is exactly why a file like this needs professional eyes before anything gets submitted. So how does a hypothetical file like Jake and Maya's end? When it's built correctly, Maya crosses the border one more time, this time with a COPR in her hand, confirmation of permanent residence. She's not a visitor anymore. She's home in Canada. The overstay was real. The border flag was real, but neither one was fatal because the file addressed them directly, the evidence was airtight, and the letter of explanation told the full story without flinching. That's what a well-built file looks like. Not hiding the problems, but getting ahead of them. Here's what I want you to take from this. An overstay is not a death sentence for a spousal sponsorship application. A border incident is not an automatic refusal, but they raise the stakes on everything. Your evidence, your letter of explanation, your strategy. They turn a standard file into a complicated one. And complex files need to be built by someone who has seen how they play out. If Jake and Maya's story sounds familiar, if there's any overstay, a flag, a border incident somewhere in your file, don't guess your way through this. The link to book a paid consultation is in the description. So what we do is we go through your file, we figure out exactly what you're dealing with, and build a strategy from there. I'll see you on the next one.